Blood stained the imported Persian rug, the metallic scent mixing with expensive whiskey. Anna trembled, stepping in front of the wheelchair to shield him from the doorway. A cold, calloused hand gripped her waist, pulling her back forcefully. "I'm still a man, Anna." A dark voice rasped. "Do you think I'm incapable?" The wrought iron gates of the Moretti estate loomed like the jaws of a beast against the bleak, overcast sky of upstate New York. For 23-year-old Anna Hastings, those gates represented the end of her freedom and the beginning of a life sentence. Her father, Philip Hastings, an investment banker with a catastrophic weakness for underground high-stakes poker, had amassed a debt of $4 million. He didn't owe this money to a bank. He owed it to the Moretti Syndicate, an organization whose roots in racketeering and extortion ran deep into the concrete foundation of the East Coast. When the time came to collect, Philip had nothing but empty accounts and a daughter. Anna was handed over not as a hostage, but as a bride. It was an archaic, barbaric transaction, disguised beneath legal documents and a forced diamond ring. She was to be the caretaker, the companion, and the legal wife of the head of the family, Vincent Moretti. Before she arrived, Anna had heard the terrifying whispers about Vincent. He was known as the Iron Wolf of the Five Families. But 6 months earlier, a coordinated car bombing in downtown Manhattan had torn through his armored Maybach. The blast killed his driver and left Vincent with a severed spinal cord. Now the Iron Wolf was paralyzed from the waist down, confined to a custom-built titanium wheelchair. The underworld murmured that a half-man could not lead an empire. Sharks were beginning to circle the bleeding estate. Stepping into the cavernous foyer of the mansion, Anna felt the heavy silence press against her eardrums. She was greeted by Leo Bianchi, a towering capo with a scar intersecting his left eyebrow. "Mr. Moretti is in his study," Leo rumbled, his voice devoid of warmth. "He expects you." Anna clutched her modest trench coat around herself, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She was led down a corridor lined with somber Renaissance oil paintings until they reached a set of heavy oak doors. Leo pushed them open. Vincent Moretti sat behind a massive mahogany desk, reviewing ledgers. The breath hitched in Anna's throat. Despite the wheelchair, barely visible behind the desk, the man radiated a suffocating, lethal authority. He was broadly built, his shoulders stretching the fabric of his bespoke charcoal suit. His jawline was sharp, shadowed by dark scruff, and his eyes, a piercing, icy slate gray, locked onto her. There was no warmth in them, only calculation. "Sit," Vincent commanded. It wasn't a request. Anna obeyed, sinking into a leather wingback chair, keeping her hands folded neatly in her lap to hide their trembling. "Let us dispense with the pleasantries, Anna," Vincent said, his voice a low, gravelly baritone that sent a shiver down her spine. "Your father is a pathetic coward who sold his own flesh and blood to save his kneecaps. You are here because I require a wife, a public figurehead to stand beside me, to smile for the cameras, and to push my chair when the optics demand a devoted spouse. In exchange, your father's debts are forgiven, and you will want for nothing. Am I a prisoner, Mr. Moretti?" Anna asked, surprising herself with the steady tenor of her own voice. Vincent's gaze darkened. He wheeled himself out from behind the desk, the hum of the electric motor the only sound in the room. He stopped mere inches from her chair. Up close, he was intimidatingly masculine, smelling of cedarwood and expensive scotch. "You are a Moretti now," he replied smoothly. "And Morettis do not leave the compound without a security detail. Call it captivity, if you wish. I call it survival." Over the next 3 weeks, Anna learned the agonizing rhythm of the household. She occupied a sprawling master suite adjoining Vincent's. They shared meals in silence. She watched him navigate the world with a stoic, simmering rage. Every morning, physical therapists arrived, and Anna would sometimes catch glimpses through an open door of Vincent straining, sweat dripping down his heavily tattooed torso as he hauled himself onto parallel bars, trying to force life back into deadened nerves. It broke her heart, but she knew better than to offer pity. The danger to Vincent's reign became apparent one rainy Tuesday afternoon. Anna was arranging white lilies in the parlor when Matteo Rossi, Vincent's ambitious underboss, strutted into the house without knocking. Matteo was a slick, venomous man who wore too much cologne and flashed predatory smiles. Anna followed quietly as Matteo barged into Vincent's study. "Vince," Matteo drawled, tossing a manila folder onto the desk. "The docks in Brooklyn. De Luca's men are encroaching. We need to push back hard. I'm thinking I take a crew down there and handle it." Vincent barely glanced at the folder. "De Luca is baiting us, Matteo. If you go in guns blazing, you start a war we aren't positioned for. We wait. We squeeze his supply lines in Jersey instead." Matteo leaned over the desk, his lip curling into a sneer of utter disrespect. "With all due respect, boss, the men need to see strength. They see you cooped up in this house, rolling around in that chair, and they think we're weak. Let me do the heavy lifting. You just focus on resting." The temperature in the room plummeted. Anna, standing in the doorway, held her breath. Vincent didn't raise his voice. He didn't reach for a weapon. He simply looked up at Matteo, his gray eyes utterly dead. "Do you think I need my legs to cut your throat, Matteo?" Matteo swallowed hard, his arrogant smirk faltering. He backed away, raising his hands in mock surrender. "Just looking out for the family, Vince." "Get out," Vincent whispered. As Matteo shoved past Anna in the doorway, he shot her a lingering, filthy look. Once he was gone, Vincent gripped the armrests of his chair, his knuckles turning white. With a violent shove, he swept the manila folder off his desk, scattering papers across the rug. Anna stepped into the room instinctively. She knelt on the floor, gathering the papers. "Leave them," Vincent snapped. "It's fine. I have them," Anna said softly. "I said leave them," Vincent roared, the sheer force of his voice echoing off the walls. He rolled the chair forward abruptly, grabbing her by the wrist. His grip was like a vice of solid iron. He pulled her up to his eye level. "I don't need a maid," he hissed, his chest heaving. "And I don't need your pity. Never look at me with those eyes, Anna. Do you understand?" Anna stared back, her pulse racing not just with fear, but with a sudden, confusing rush of adrenaline. She saw the torment beneath his fury. "I wasn't pitying you, Vincent," she breathed, her voice barely a whisper. "I was just helping." He stared at her lips for a fraction of a second before dropping her wrist as if it burned him. He spun his chair around, facing the rain-lashed window. "Get dressed," he ordered coldly. "Tomorrow night, we attend the St. Regis Charity Gala. It is time the underworld sees that the Iron Wolf is still breathing." The grand ballroom of the St. Regis Hotel in Manhattan was a glittering sea of crystal chandeliers, flowing champagne, and dangerous people wearing expensive masks of civility. This was neutral ground, an annual charity gala where the city's most ruthless syndicate leaders rubbed shoulders with corrupt politicians and oblivious socialites. Anna stood beside Vincent's wheelchair, looking breathtaking in an emerald green silk gown that clung to her curves, a staggering diamond necklace resting against her collarbone, a gift Vincent had fastened around her neck earlier that evening, his fingers brushing warmly against her skin. Despite the glamour, the air was thick with tension. Every eye in the room subtly shifted toward Vincent. Anna could feel the weight of their collective judgment. They looked at the wheelchair, not the man. Matteo Rossi hovered nearby, sipping a martini and holding court with a group of capos from rival families. Among them was Carmine De Luca, a silver-haired, heavy-set mob boss with a notorious reputation for brutality. De Luca approached them, an oily smile stretching across his withered face. "Vincent," he boomed, extending a hand. "Good to see you out of the house. We were starting to worry the damp air upstate was doing a number on your joints." It was a thinly veiled insult, a mockery of his condition. Vincent shook the man's hand with crushing force, his face a mask of polite indifference. "My joints are fine, Carmine. But I hear your import business is suffering. Something about a sudden delay at the Jersey ports." DeLuca's smile tightened, realizing Vincent had successfully choked his supply lines just as he'd promised Matteo he would. Minor setbacks. DeLuca shifted his gaze to Anna, his eyes roaming her body with blatant disrespect. And this must be the collateral. Beautiful girl. It's a shame a young, vibrant thing like her has to spend her nights pushing a wheelchair. Vincent's jaw locked. Before he could speak, Anna stepped forward, her chin tilted up defiantly. Mr. DeLuca, Anna said, her voice carrying a cold, aristocratic edge she didn't know she possessed, I push his chair because he carries the weight of a multi-million-dollar empire on his shoulders, an empire that, from my understanding, dwarfs yours. A man's strength is in his mind, not his legs. Perhaps if you spent less time concerning yourself with my husband's mobility and more time managing your ports, your cargo wouldn't be rotting in Jersey. A stunned silence fell over their small circle. Matteo choked on his martini. DeLuca's face flushed a deep, ugly red. Vincent looked at Anna, a spark of genuine shock and dark amusement flaring in his slate-gray eyes. For the first time, a genuine, terrifying smirk graced his lips. You'll have to excuse my wife, Carmine. She has little patience for incompetence. DeLuca scoffed, turning on his heel and storming away. Matteo leaned in, his voice a panicked hiss. Are you out of your mind, Vince? Letting the girl talk to a boss like that? She spoke the truth, Vincent said coldly. Something you seem incapable of doing, Matteo. Before Matteo could reply, the opulent ballroom plunged into total darkness. The music ground to a halt. A split second of confused murmuring was shattered by the deafening crack of automatic gunfire. Screams erupted. Glass shattered as bullets tore through the grand chandelier above, raining crystal shrapnel down upon the elite crowd. Get down! Vincent roared, his powerful arm wrapping around Anna's waist, yanking her down to the floor beside his heavy chair. Vince! Leo yelled from the crowd, his voice barely cutting through the chaos. Gunfire flashed in the dark, illuminating masked men armed with submachine guns pushing through the exits. It was a coordinated hit. Matteo sold us out, Vincent growled, drawing a sleek, custom-gripped pistol from a holster concealed beneath his jacket. He fired 3 times in rapid succession. In the strobe flashes of muzzle fire, Anna saw 3 masked men drop to the marble floor. Anna, stay low, Vincent commanded. With his left hand, he engaged the heavy-duty motors of his chair. Push the chair. We go to the service corridors. Now. Adrenaline overriding her terror, Anna grabbed the handles of the chair. Staying crouched, she shoved, navigating through the screaming, stampeding crowd. They broke through a set of double swinging doors leading into the hotel's sprawling kitchen and service hallways. The distant pop of gunfire echoed behind them. Anna was hyperventilating, her emerald dress torn, her bare feet bleeding from broken glass after she'd kicked off her heels. She pushed Vincent down a narrow, dimly lit corridor lined with industrial freezers, toward a manager's office. Anna shoved the door open, wheeled Vincent inside, and slammed it shut, throwing the heavy deadbolt. The room was small, suffocating, and reeked of stale coffee. Anna collapsed against the door, sliding down to the floor, gasping for air. Vincent was eerily calm. He checked his magazine, the metallic click deafening in the quiet room. Are you hit? He asked, his eyes scanning her frantically in the dim light. And no, Anna sobbed, crawling toward him. Her hands fluttered over his legs, his chest, terrified that he'd caught a stray bullet and couldn't feel it because of his paralysis. Are you? Vincent, tell me if you're bleeding. You wouldn't be able to feel it. Oh God, I need to check you. She was frantic, treating him like a fragile invalid. She grabbed the heavy mahogany desk chair, trying to pull it in front of him to barricade him. We have to hide you. If they come in, I can try to distract them. I have a letter opener. Heavy footsteps thudded down the hallway outside. Voices muttered in Italian. They were checking doors. Anna stood frozen in front of Vincent's wheelchair, her hands trembling as she gripped a silver letter opener she'd snatched from the desk. She was determined to stand between the gunman and her crippled husband. Suddenly, the handle of the office door jingled. A heavy kick smashed against the wood. The door splintered. Anna screamed, raising the pathetic letter opener, but a hand of absolute iron clamped around her hip, yanking her violently backward and down. She fell into Vincent's lap just as the door blew open, revealing two massive hitmen leveling suppressed pistols. Vincent didn't flinch. With Anna shielded tightly against his chest by his left arm, his right arm extended. He fired twice. Asterisk bang. Bang asterisk. The shots were terrifyingly precise. Both hitmen took a bullet squarely between the eyes, collapsing backward into the hallway like cut strings. Silence rushed back into the room, save for the ringing in Anna's ears. She lay frozen across Vincent's lap, her heart hammering against his solid, broad chest. She looked up at him, breathless, terrified by the cold, emotionless mask of a killer he wore so naturally. Frantically, the adrenaline making her delirious, she tried to scramble off his lap, her hands patting his abdomen. "Vincent, you could have been killed. I was trying to protect you. You're in a chair. You can't move fast enough. You can't." His hand shot out, wrapping tightly around the back of her neck, silencing her panicked rambling. His grip was firm, possessive, yet surprisingly tender. He pulled her face down until her lips were mere inches from his. His slate-gray eyes burned with a sudden, dark fire that made Anna's breath catch. "I'm still a man, Anna." His voice was a low, vibrating growl that settled deep in her core. "Do you think I'm incapable?" Anna stared into his eyes, her lips parted. She suddenly became acutely aware of the hard muscle of his chest, the dominant strength in the hand gripping her neck, the raw, undeniable presence radiating from him. The wheelchair beneath them ceased to exist. In that dark, bloody room, Vincent Moretti wasn't a broken mob boss. He was an apex predator, and she was entirely at his mercy. "And no," she whispered, her voice trembling with a completely new kind of fear. Vincent's gaze dropped to her parted lips, the tension between them snapping into something electric and dangerously intoxicating. "Good," he murmured, his thumb brushing over her jawline. "Because Mateo is going to die tonight. And you are going to watch." The heavy oak door swung open, revealing Leo. His suit was covered in plaster dust and blood. "Vince!" Leo gasped, his eyes darting to the two dead men on the floor. "We have the perimeter secured, but the hotel is swarming with cops." De Luca slipped out the back. "Mateo is gone." Vincent released his grip on Anna. He smoothly holstered his weapon, his expression turning into a mask of pure, unadulterated vengeance. "Mateo set the trap," Vincent stated, his voice a low, terrifying rumble. "He fed De Luca our security layout. Get the vans. We are leaving through the loading docks." Anna scrambled to her feet, her breathing ragged. She expected Vincent to ask for help, but he maneuvered his heavy chair with brutal efficiency, rolling over the shattered glass without a second glance. Anna grabbed her torn emerald skirt and ran after him. The fear that had paralyzed her moments ago was gone, replaced by a strange, intoxicating adrenaline. She realized she was not running away from the mafia boss. She was running with him. They navigated the smoke-filled corridors until they reached the underground parking garage. Two black armored vans idled near the exit. Leo lifted Vincent into the back of the first van, while Anna climbed in beside him. As the doors slammed shut and the vehicle peeled out into the rainy New York night, the harsh reality of their situation settled over them. The interior of the van was dark, illuminated only by passing streetlights. Vincent sat in his specialized locked seat, his broad chest rising and falling slowly. He did not look weak. He looked like a wounded god of war, calculating his next move. Anna reached out, her fingers trembling, and gently touched his arm. He turned his slate-gray eyes toward her. "Are you afraid of me, Anna?" he asked softly. She thought about the two men he had just executed without blinking. She thought about the dark, possessive way he had held her neck. "I should be," she whispered, her voice surprisingly steady. "But I am not." I am angry. A slow, dangerous smile curved Vincent's lips. Good. Anger is a weapon. Fear is a liability. He reached out, his calloused thumb wiping a smudge of dirt from her cheek. The touch was agonizingly tender, a stark contrast to the violence they had just survived. Matteo thought my condition made me blind to his ambition. He thought I was a broken king. Tomorrow, I will remind the underworld what happens when you wake the Iron Wolf. They did not return to the sprawling estate. Leo drove them to an unmarked, heavily fortified warehouse in the Bronx. This was Vincent's true seat of power, an underground bunker bristling with loyal soldiers. Over the next 48 hours, the safe house became a war room. Anna refused to hide in the designated sleeping quarters. She stayed by Vincent's side. She watched him orchestrate a massive, synchronized purge. He did not need his legs to dismantle an empire. His mind was a lethal, hypervigilant machine. Sitting at a massive steel table surrounded by monitors, Vincent barked orders. Hit De Luca's illegal casinos in Queens. Burn them to the ground, but leave the patrons unharmed. I want De Luca's pockets bleeding by dawn. Leo nodded, dispatching the strike teams. And Matteo? Leave Matteo to me, Vincent replied softly. Anna served Vincent black coffee, her presence becoming a silent anchor for him. The men in the room, hardened killers, began to look at her differently. They no longer saw a hostage bride. They saw a woman who stood unflinchingly beside their boss during a war. On the third night, a bruised and bloodied soldier was dragged into the war room. It was one of Matteo's inner circle. Where is he? Vincent asked, his voice deathly calm. The soldier spat blood onto the concrete floor. He's hiding at the abandoned shipyard in Brooklyn. He's got 50 men, heavily armed, Vince. You can't touch him. He says you're half a man. He says he's taking the family. Vincent chuckled, a dark, vibrating sound that chilled the room. 50 men. He looked at Leo. Prepare my chair. We are going to Brooklyn. Anna's heart stopped. Vincent, no, she blurted out, stepping in front of him. It's a suicide mission. 50 men. You can't go into that environment. Vincent reached out, grabbing her waist and pulling her firmly between his legs. The men in the room respectfully looked away. Anna, he murmured, his face inches from hers. A king does not send his pawns to execute a traitor. He does it himself. Then I am going with you, she declared, her eyes burning with fierce determination. Vincent stared at her, genuinely surprised. Then he cupped her face. You are a magnificent creature, Anna. But this is not a gala. You will stay here. When I return, we will finally begin our marriage. Before she could argue, he kissed her. It was a crushing, desperate, bruising kiss that tasted of coffee, danger, and unyielding possession. Anna melted against him, her hands gripping his broad shoulders. When he pulled away, he left her breathless and utterly devoted to the man in the wheelchair. The Brooklyn shipyard was a labyrinth of rusted shipping containers and broken cranes. A torrential downpour hammered the metal structures, turning the ground into a slick, muddy swamp. Matteo paced nervously inside a large, illuminated warehouse at the center of the yard. His men were positioned on catwalks and behind crates, assault rifles ready. He had expected an army of Vincent's soldiers. He had prepared for a siege. Instead, the massive rolling doors of the warehouse shrieked open, revealing a single figure. Vincent Moretti sat in his titanium wheelchair, bathed in the harsh halogen lights. He was completely alone. He wore a black tactical jacket, his face an emotionless mask, the rain pouring down his broad shoulders. Matteo stopped pacing, a cruel, mocking laugh bursting from his chest. You came alone? In your little chair? Have you lost your mind, Vince? Where's your army? Vincent rolled forward slowly, the electric motor humming loudly in the echoing space. He stopped 20 feet away from Matteo. My army is busy wiping out De Luca's entire operation. I did not need an army for a rat. Matteo flushed with anger. He gestured to the dozens of armed men surrounding them. Look around you, old man. You are surrounded. You are crippled. Your reign is over. I am the future of this family. You are nothing but a coward who hides behind borrowed guns, Vincent stated coldly. I gave you everything. I raised you in this family. And you sold us out to a pig like De Luca because you were impatient. I sold you out because you were weak, Matteo screamed, drawing his pistol and aiming it directly at Vincent's chest. A boss needs to lead from the front. You can't even walk down a flight of stairs. Goodbye, Vince. Matteo pulled the trigger. Click, the firing pin struck an empty chamber. Matteo froze, eyes widening in confusion. He racked the slide and pulled the trigger again. Click, panic washed over his face. He turned to the men on the catwalks. Shoot him. Kill him. Nobody moved. The 50 men standing around the warehouse lowered their weapons. From the shadows behind them, Leo stepped forward, wiping rain from his face. Vincent smiled a terrifying, razor-sharp smile. You spent all your time looking at my wheelchair, Matteo. You forgot to look at the men whose loyalty you thought you'd bought. They belong to me. They have always belonged to me. Matteo dropped his useless gun, stumbling backward, his bravado shattering into pathetic terror. Vince, please. I was confused. De Luca manipulated me. I swear on my mother's grave. Vincent reached into his jacket and drew his pistol. He did not raise his voice. He did not show anger. He showed only the cold, mechanical ruthlessness that had made him a legend. I'm still a man, Matteo, Vincent whispered, the echo carrying through the silent warehouse. Do you think I'm incapable? Vincent fired once. The bullet caught Matteo perfectly in the chest. He collapsed backward into the mud, gasping for air, his blood mixing with the heavy rain. Vincent lowered his weapon. He stared at the dying traitor for a long moment before turning his chair around. Burn the body, he commanded Leo. Let the ashes wash into the river. As Vincent rolled back out into the storm, the men bowed their heads in absolute reverence. The Iron Wolf had returned, more terrifying than ever. An hour later, the armored van pulled back into the fortified Bronx compound. Anna was waiting at the steel door. When she saw Vincent emerge, unharmed and victorious, she didn't hesitate. She ran to him, dropping to her knees in front of his chair, wrapping her arms around his neck, burying her face in his damp jacket. Vincent's strong arms encircled her instantly, pulling her tight against his chest. He buried his face in her dark hair, inhaling her scent. It is done, he murmured. Anna pulled back, looking into his slate-gray eyes. There was no fear left in her, only an intense, burning loyalty. I know, she said softly. He reached down, his powerful hands gripping her waist. With a groan of effort, using his immense upper body strength, he lifted her off her knees and settled her across his lap, just as he had done in the hotel. But this time, they were not hiding. You are my wife, Vincent declared, his voice thick with raw emotion and dark promise. You belong to me. You will rule this empire by my side. Anna traced his sharp jawline, leaning in until her lips brushed against his. I would follow you into hell, Vincent Moretti. The underworld had thought the Iron Wolf was broken. They thought his wheelchair was a throne of weakness. But as Vincent claimed his wife's lips in the heart of his fortress, they both knew the truth. True power did not require legs. It required a ruthless mind, an unbreakable will, and a queen willing to stand beside him through the blood. Did you love this dark, thrilling mafia romance story? If Anna and Vincent's dangerous love kept you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button right now. Don't forget to share this video with your fellow romance readers who crave intense, gripping drama with dark alpha heroes. Subscribe to our channel and ring the notification bell so you never miss another chapter of our original stories. Leave a comment below with your favorite moment.